All right, so I wanted to take some time to go over Adobe InDesign with everybody. I've reached out to IT and they are working on getting you access so you can download Adobe Creative Cloud and log in and get access to the programs that you need for this assignment. So this is Adobe InDesign. It's pretty similar to any other Adobe platform in the way it looks and feels. But first thing is first, we need to create a new document. So if you'll go to Create New, it's going to ask you how you want your document to be set up. If you come over to Units, we can change that to inches. And for the magazine assignment, it's going to be a 2-page spread, and the dimensions for each page will be 8.5 by 11. We'll want to say that there's 2 pages, and if we start on number 2, we should get the 2-page spread that we are looking for. Another thing that's going to be helpful are columns. So typically when you look at a magazine, it's 2 to 3 columns. There are some that have 4 columns of text. So it's kind of up to you, but the columns will indicate the constraints for your text. Column gutter is the space between each of the columns. We also have margins, which provide margins on the inside of the paper. The other thing that I want to bring up is the bleed. The bleed and slug. Bleed is the amount that your design will go off of the page. Hopefully you've learned about this in some of your other classes, but whenever we send this to the printer and we have, let's say, an image that is supposed to fill up the entire page, we don't design it just to fit on an 8.5 by 11. We will actually design it larger than the page so that when they go to cut the pages, if the person or the machine that's cutting is a little off, it's not going to cut or leave a white space or cut too much of the design. So for the assignment you're going to turn into me, let's do 0.125 inches. So that'll be an extra 1/4 of an inch on the left, right, and top, bottom. Slug is for the place in between the pages, so we don't really need to worry about the slug. So I'm going to come over here to create, and there is our 2-page spread. Since we started on page 2, we have 2 pages that are side by side. We have 3 columns. We have some space in between the columns, and we have this, we have what's called a gutter, which is the space between the columns. We have our bleed. So we see the white area is our page, and the red line is the bleed. So we've set this up exactly how you need to for your assignment. There are some things that are going to be important. The first is the text. So I'm just for this purpose, I'm going to go and find some dummy text. And I'm going to need a lot. Alright, so I have copied the text that I need to put into the story. First thing is there's a couple of ways that you can go about doing this. The first is we could just paste this in there and it will create a text box. Notice that we have this red box with a plus sign in it. That means, hey, there's more text than is being shown. And even if we come down to the bottom, we have an error. And it says overset text. It means we have too much text for the text frame. It needs to be bigger. So what we can do is we can bring it over here. We can size this to be the size of a column. So that looks great, but we still have overset text. What we can do is we can click this red button and it loads our cursor with the text. And so I can now click and draw another box, and it has created another text box for us. So I can keep doing that. There we go. So just for this exercise, I'm going to delete some of this extra stuff. Looks like there's a lot. Wow, there's a lot of extra. Okay. So as you can see, whenever I would delete, everything would shift up. So same thing over here. If I add text here, it pushes all the text behind it down. So all these boxes are linked, and we'll have plenty of space for all of our text to grow and expand as we change. So the next thing would be image placeholders, or this rectangle frame. So this can be a placeholder. You can put all these shapes where you want them and then drop in your images later. So I'm going to put a large image that takes up about the top third of the page, and so I could drop in my an image into that later. So notice that when we put this photo or this box in here, it's going to cover up some of our text. So we need to address that. Okay, so what I did was I went to properties, and we have this option for text wrap. So all it does is push the text down. So that'll help us out no matter where we put this image. That text will wrap around the box. So let's talk about actually putting an image in here. So I can go to File and Place, and I can select an image that I want. It is important that you put CMYK images, and you put high quality images that are at least 300 on the resolution. That is for high quality print. So let's say I'm going to put in this Spirit WT. Whenever I select it, my cursor is loaded, right? So I could select this placeholder box, and what it does is it puts the image in there. I can hit undo, and the other option is I can drag and drop, and it will place it into my document. So this WT is white, that's why we can't see it. So I'm going to delete that, and let's look at a different option. The other thing is, if I select this box and go to File, Place, and I select this PNG, it'll drop it in there, but it will stretch the image That's not the original image proportion. So it stretched it to fill that box, which isn't great. So if you're going to do something like this and put a placeholder, you need to know the exact dimensions and design your images to fit into that. So the other option is I can drop it in here. I can put a text wrap. So wherever it goes, it'll push that text aside. All right, so I'm going to show y'all one other thing with images that some people get really frustrated with. So it's important that you take time to understand it. So I'm going to place an image. This time I'm going to try to actually find an image. Here we go. Yeah, okay, we're going to use one of these generic photos. So I'm going to drop it in. So I'm just going to click once. And we can see how large it is. It's really, really large. That's the original size. That's too large, right? So the other option is I can click and drag to fill the space that I want it to. That's great. The proportions are the way it needs to be. I know that I haven't made it larger than what it should be. It's important to understand that we have two constraining boxes when it comes to images in InDesign. Well, where's that image? Here we go. So notice that we have a blue line around this image. So if I hover with the selection tool, if I hover over one of the corner handles and I click and drag it, it is only changing the frame or the constraining box. I can make this frame as large as I want it to be, but just because I increase the size of the frame does not mean the image itself increases. I can make the frame smaller than the image, and it does not shrink the image. So that's the frame. So if you're thinking of like a picture frame that hangs on your wall, this blue line is the frame. We can buy a large picture frame and put a small picture in it. To change the actual size of the image, we're going to hover over the circle and we're going to see the little hand. If I click on it, we now have kind of this red, orange, or brown box with the handles. So now if I click, I can drag this and look what happened. This is how large the picture is. That's how large the frame is. The picture is larger than the frame. And I've even stretched it, which is terrible. So what needs to happen is I need to hold down the shift button when I make it larger or smaller to lock in the proportions. We still have a picture that's larger than the frame. So we need to change the frame. So I'm going to click on the image so that I get the blue box. I'm going to hold down shift and I'm going to drag the frame so now this frame matches the size of the picture. So really, really important stuff. So let's talk about some more text stuff. So if I go to Window and I go to Type and I go to Paragraph, we have some options. One of them is hyphenate. When it comes to magazine layouts or any other type of print design, we do not want to hyphenate. So hyphenate should be turned off. There is one other thing regarding text that I want to go over. It's going to be on the next video just to keep these shorter. So watch the next video for more intro and overview for inDesign.